1500 was just a mess. Uh,
Okay. If I had a time machine and I
I
went
have a
up to
take
you
on this though.
and I told you Joe Waskom of Washington
Uh-huh.
is going to win the NCAA 1500. Don't get me, and when you're like, "Oh, what's his mile time?" I'll be like, "He's a steeplechaser."
Mhm.
What would your reaction be?
Yeah, it must have been a crazy, weird, wild race, right?
Yeah.
That's what I would have
Well, it's
thought,
just
which is
like
what it was.
crazy that like someone that no one was thinking about outside of his teammates and his coach, right? And people in the Seattle area. But no one was thinking Joe Waskom is going to win the NCAA title. Maybe they look at John Davis because he's run a fast time. Obviously, Garcia Romo is a favorite. Uh, Kip
Or the
Sang,
guys who went out in the prelim.
the guys went out in the
Kip
prelim. They were
Sang.
also
Yeah.
supposed to be there, but uh, it's just kind of wild that someone that no one was thinking about ends up winning the marquee mid distance race.
Mhm.
Like you look at all of the winners in every men's event, they all kind of were like in the top three conversation. No one had Joe Waskom in
Yeah.
their top three, and it's just kind of wild. It shows that like anything can happen in the 1500 when you're trying to win it in 3:45.
Well, I thought that all the distance races 15 and up. I mean, Jaziri in the steeple was predicted, but I thought Hacker was an upset. Obviously, that Dylan Jacobs was an upset, and I thought this
Yeah,
was
but Hacker
an upset.
winning,
This is a
he
bigger
was
upset. Yeah, this is a bigger upset. Yeah, yeah. No, I
Hacker was a
understand. I understand.
top three guy. Dylan Jacobs is good. He was a top 4 or 5 guy.
Yeah. So I haven't seen any interviews yet because we're recording right after this got done with Garcia Romo, but this just has to be a nightmare race for him. And the reason I
Oh
say
yeah,
that is because we always talk about tactics and getting boxed in, and commentators spend a lot of time talking about it. But usually in a 1500-meter race, there is an opportunity that presents itself. And you make a big deal about it in lap one or lap two because it's a dramatic thing to talk about. But usually there's time and space to get out of the box. I mean, even in film, Without Limits, right? The big deal. Pre's boxed in, he can't get out, and then he finally gets out of the box. Garcia Romo was locked up until what, 50, 60 to go? Like locked up. He had nowhere to go. And again, that's just the thing that keeps you up at night, but doesn't actually happen because it's like that running in all of a sudden the track turns into quicksand, and you wake up in a cold sweat. That's what this was. And I don't know. I mean, Washington had three guys in there, which allowed them to dictate stuff. That race is too chaotic to have everything in place. But Romo was gaining pretty quickly there, ran out of room in the final strides. But again, that's the worst case scenario. And you could say, hey, he could have, he took the pace on. Maybe he could have gone even harder earlier to thin the thing out. But he was in so much traffic the entire race. There was no way he could get out of there.
yeah. He maybe just made an assumption that a path would open, and it just never did. And
Of
now,
course, because it usually
because you,
does. It usually
yeah, it
does.
usually
He won the indoor
does, and
mile.
you
You can't be bad
sometimes,
at tactics when the indoor mile, usually.
yeah. And then if he would have known that the path was going to close, then he would have to make that move and swing out wide into 2-3 on like the back turn,
Sure.
which is
Sure.
risky because you're losing momentum. So he was just being like taking the odds. Is like I would rather trust that a lane's going to open than risk losing momentum by trying to swing wide on the back turn. And his calculation didn't work out because I think if he would have swung wide with like
Yeah.
150 to go, he wins the race.
But there right, in an alternate reality, he had nowhere to
Yeah,
go. If he swung wide with 150 to go, he would have got DQ'd like six times. It would have been a Draymond Green
yeah, that's
situation
true.
for our NBA fans in the chat. He would have just bowled over three or four guys to get there. Like you, fellow podcaster Draymond Green, by the way. That's what I'm saying. There was never any daylight.
Yeah,
Usually there's some, but just the way the race developed, it just had to have been, he had to have been sitting there the whole time. All right, be patient, be patient, be patient. It'll open, it'll open, it'll open. And then never did. I mean, it was almost like the scenario you talked about where you said one day you hope to see team tactics where people from one team encircle a top runner from the other team. And that was basic. Like, go back and watch this race. From the vantage point I saw, it just he never had any opportunities to do anything different. Like his fate was sealed. I forgot when he got past and fell back onto the rail, but at that point his fate was basically sealed. He could not get out, and the pace was too slow. Nobody was going to fall off that pace.
Yeah, it was like inverse Centro 2016 at the Olympic Games. There was no
Yeah,
way Centro was going to lose the race because he had the perfect position the entire time, and it was no one could ever
yeah,
pass him. This was the inverse. He had the worst position the entire time, and he
yeah,
never got the lane to move through.
yeah, exactly. And it's just that's tough. That's tough to happen, especially in this championship.
But
All
big ups
right.
to Andy Powell and the Huskies. It probably feels good
Yeah.
whenever Andy Powell has a winner win in Oregon's turf. You know, it's pretty
Yes.
cool.
Yep.
You replaced those 3 Washington jerseys with Oregon, and they're going wild there, right? And that's what it
Yeah.
was like during, the Mac Fleet days and all the
Yeah.
other great mileage that come out of
Centro and
there. Centro,
well,
obviously, yeah.
for a while when Edwards was running well on the high hurdles, he's a former Oregon Duck too. I thought, man, is he going to upset Trey Cunningham at his old track? Like that'd be a crazy story
Oh,
too.
yeah, Eric Edwards did run
Uh,
for Oregon. I forgot about that.
yeah.
A long